Don't just look at the vanity metrics. It's all about sort of who are you really talking to and how are they talking to you? And that's how you can really tell, I think, what your audience wants.
Are you a fitness-loving foodie? Then Defy Snacks is for you. Defy offers real, high-quality chocolate you love, combined with functional ingredients, giving you as much as 26 grams of protein per bag, so you can be both a little bit bad and a little bit good at the same time. As a female-owned brand, Defy dedicates a portion of its profits to other women-owned businesses. Currently sold in the US, you can find us on defy.snacks.com and follow us on social at Defy Snacks.
Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, the creative effectiveness ad tech platform. And this is a weekly podcast about the future of data-driven marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders. And this week is no different, but it's actually very different. I am sat in front of a large painting of the Queen overlooking Buckingham Palace because I'm in the Rubens at the Palace Hotel, which is part of the Red Carnation Hotel collection. And I'm with Molly Peel, who has made this experience possible. And she's the head of social media at the Red Carnation Hotel collection. So Molly, thank you for the first podcast I've ever done in a hotel room, and a very, very nice hotel room at that. Could you give the audience just a bit of background on who you are and what you do?
Of course. So thank you so much for having me and for remembering the hotel name as well. Always a, bonus point for that.
It's written on a complimentary
Don't tell them that.
But isn't that a selling point that you get like a nice little...
Absolutely. I can tell you a bit more about that in a minute. My name is Molly. I am the head of social for Red Carnation Hotels. I've been with the company for about 4 years now. Previously, I dabbled in a bit of music, thought I was going to become a pop star. That dream was quite quickly shattered, and here I am. I've landed myself a job in marketing, which I love. So I look after the social media for the Red Carnation Hotel collection. We are a collection of luxury properties around the world, all very different and with incredible unique selling points. So that makes my job challenging, but equally very exciting every day.
So I got a birthday card this year and it said, it's never too late to become a rock star. So I cut it out and stuck it on my wall. So, there's still time for your musical ambitions.
I do think my team are quite sick of me always choosing karaoke for our Christmas party.
What's your song?
Oh, I can't answer that in 30 seconds.
I say one song. Come on.
Well, there's...
If you had to do it now, if I was like, right, I've got the backing track here, 1, 2, 3, off you go, what would it be?
Love on Top by Beyonce.
Brilliant. I've absolutely not.
Yeah, we don't fuck around. But we just.
If only I had the rights to play that in the background. Anyway, look, we've got to crack on. We've got some serious questions. So you've chosen a very rare question out of the questions list, and it is, how do you want your career to be remembered?
I loved this question, because it made me really think about something that I don't think I would have ever thought about in my career unless I saw it written down. So without sounding cheesy, without sounding cliche, obviously you want to be remembered about, by being good at what you do and sort of making an impression. But I think, for what I do is obviously very creative. So to be kind of remembered as someone who is very creative, yet, bringing clarity into the work that we do, for kind of helping to make a bit of an impact and to, reassure my teams that no idea is too big. I mean, obviously you have, budget blockers. You do have the case of if they wanted to, fly a drone over Buckingham Palace, that might not be able to happen. But to kind of harbour an environment where people feel safe to come up with these creative ideas and to kind of, feel like they can suggest things that they've sat there and thought about, and they've got these like brilliantly creative ideas, and to always make them feel like they can. And to be remembered for sort of shifting the perception of social media. I think, when I started this I've worked in social for a lot longer than 4 years, but, being with Red Carnation for 4 years, it's like, I want people to know and for people to remember me of always kind of making it known that social media is a non-negotiable for a business and a brand. And I think that's going to, get more prominent as we kind of go on with the years. So just kind of being remembered for helping to lead that and to hopefully have some good ideas along the way.
Well, that is a lovely ambition. I support you on that. So next up, do you have a single bit of advice to help someone become a better data-driven marketer?
Yeah, so obviously the industry that I work in is very focused on our guests. They are at the heart of everything that we do. It's why we do it. For loyal returning guests, or to kind of get the interest of potential new guests, young and old. So for me, a big one is to kind of treat data like a review, like feedback, like a guest review that you would see on TripAdvisor or, Google reviews or something like that. And don't focus so much. I think one of the things when I was starting out in social media is that, I would work for agencies that would be like, right, Molly can get you 50,000 followers in 4 hours. And I was sort of sat there thinking, well, if I could get you 50,000 followers in 4 hours, like my personal account would have hundreds and millions of thousands of followers. But, don't focus on the vanity metrics. Real value comes from understanding why the content performs in the way it does, and use those insights to kind of shape your strategies. So what are people really, what are they engaging with, and how can you take that information to kind of create even sharper content strategies? Another piece of advice I would say is sort of identify the metrics that align with your wider brand goals. So when you're putting together your marketing strategies at the beginning of the year, what are you looking at from a wider perspective, and how can you take those metrics and align them with, well, in particular, what I do with social strategy. Let results guide and prompt creativity rather than limit it. So I think this is, if you get hit with a fat stack of KPIs at the beginning of the year and you need to hit these, it's like, don't become overwhelmed by the numbers. Use the data from previous years and think, right, what really worked well last year? And I mean, I'll talk a little bit about this in a bit more detail, but use previous year's data to really drive. That sounds really obvious, and I don't mean for it to sound obvious, but use it to kind of shape those strategies for next year. Like if that post worked really well, don't just think, we've done a picture of, the Queen and this beautiful suite that we're at the Rubens. If it worked really well, why did it work really well? And how can we, shift that to create a similar post with a similar subject? But we know that's what our audience are engaging with. So we can, take that and do it again. Stay close. I think this is, a really big one as well for the hospitality industry. And it kind of touches on use the data as kind of a review or a feedback. Stay closer to your customers than the data. It's powerful, but our interpretation of what we can take from that drives the real results. So look at how your customers are talking to you. Look at the sentiment. Don't just look at like I said, the vanity metrics. It's all about sort of who are you really talking to and how are they talking to you, and that's how you can really tell, I think, what your audience wants.
Something you said just struck me there, where you're talking about keeping your customers closer than the data. So how do you balance the soft qual information data you get from customers with the hard ones and zeros that you're getting back from the platforms?
Well, I think there's always going to be some kind of correlation. I would say, particularly for me with my social media position, it's like at the end of the day, I'm more focused on the actual conversation that someone is leaving on our posts or that kind of communication than I am with this post has been shared X amount of times. I mean, I think for me, that data of that conversation within that post is more valuable to me, like I spoke about before, than any sort of vanity metrics. So that's why I always think, when you do get those targets and you have some people that say, we want, 20,000 followers. And it's like, well, actually, you want to use social as a tool to really talk to the right people. And, you could have 2 million. This isn't just talking about this job. This is going back for other jobs. It's like influencers, for example. You could work with an influencer who you have 2 million followers and you think, oh my God, they have 2 million followers. That's insane. That's amazing. You could work with someone else who has 5,000 followers. You would rather talk to someone who has 5,000 super engaged followers who, are getting those conversations, and I would look at those conversations as almost like data, especially when I'm reporting. Or you could look at someone that you've worked with that has sort of 2 million followers and you're talking to maybe 250 of those people. It's like the one with 5,000 followers is a lot more valuable. So obviously sometimes there are instances where you do need to sort of really look at those numbers and be like, right, okay, that's, especially if there's not any money involved or anything like that. But realistically, when it comes to growing our organic socials through the strategies that we execute, it's the conversation, it's the community that I'm more interested in, because I think at the end of the day, if we're not talking to them correctly, then realistically we're not going to get those numbers anyway.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with Madfest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from Madfest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So we're going to move on now to your shiny new object. And what we were discussing earlier was that you were going to talk about predictive analysis. So I think I know what that means. But can you tell the listeners what predictive analysis means to you and why you've chosen that as your bright future of data-driven marketing?
Of course. So this is something that I think is really exciting. I think for me, predictive analysis just sort of, it means like a flurry of things. It's really looking ahead, being more sort of proactive rather than reactive. I think I spend a lot of time in my position being quite reactive, and where that's absolutely fine. I think it's easy to get stuck in this kind of repetitive, reactive loop where you sort of post, you analyze, you adjust. But realistically, we can use, and I touched on this before, it's like with predictive analysis, we can look at what's working in the landscape, what worked this time last year, what's working for this sort of sentiment trend, what's working for this industry trend, to predict how we can implement that in future strategies. So kind of keeping ahead to shift from reactive to proactive, like I said, and using data patterns to anticipate our next moves. So I guess with the likes of social listening, or as I, prefer to call it, and I've been working with some amazing companies, well, one amazing company on this, they love to call it social intelligence. And I love that because it is really using this, I guess, intelligent data to shape how we evolve those strategies.
So tell me a bit more about how that social intelligence, social listening is working for you. So within a predictive analysis or analytics perspective, like how are you what are you listening to? What are you listening for? And then how do you process that into proactive creative idea?
So I think the way in which we're using social intelligence at the moment is to we're not solely relying on it. I think, this is it's not a new, social listening is not a new tool at all, but I think the way in which it is evolving is for me, I found it, in all honesty, quite overwhelming when I was first introduced to it. I was like, oh my God, we've got all these people talking about us, and I didn't even know, that platform existed, or I didn't even know that we'd ever be spoken about like that on something like Reddit or something like that. It's not something that was in my kind of day-to-day, but I think using social intelligence to sort of help identify emerging themes and sentiment shifts to help with better sort of content alignment. Again, so looking at what people are saying about us, how are people talking about us, how can we use that to our, benefit, and also to see how other people are talking about our competitors, or not even within the hospitality industry. I think when you're looking at these emerging trends, I don't want to stay so restricted just to our industry. I think social is such an incredibly powerful tool, and if you're kind of open-minded to it, and I'm not always open-minded. I think there's certain things that come out from the hospitality industry and what our competitors are doing that are great, but I think to kind of cast your net a bit wider and see how you can use that. And I think that's how we're using social intelligence, is like not just keeping ourselves in a box. It's looking at the kind of complete social landscape, but also not letting it replace the creativity. I think this is another thing that with talks on AI and how easy it is. I mean, we just had that wonderful chat about your daughter creating these beautiful pictures of a unicorn on a piece of banana bread or whatever, and that's so cool that you can easily do that. But I think one thing, especially in what I do, I never want my teams to solely rely on AI, because especially at Red Carnation, one of the big things that we're really proud of is the kind of authenticity and that real kind of personal connection that you get through any of our communications. So it's like, we don't really use automated responses. It's like if you send a DM, you might on a weekend get a holding message, when the team isn't working, but 90% of the time you're actually talking to a real person that is feeling all those feelings that you're feeling, can empathize with you. So I think, not letting it replace the creativity, but just to sharpen it based on the signals that we may have missed otherwise. I think it's really exciting. And the way that we're adapting, predictive analysis through social intelligence is going to hopefully make us the best hotel brand in the world. But we already are, so.
So if someone in a brand's listening to this thinking, do you know what, we used to do social listening, or actually we need to get on with it, you're the expert here. Like, what should people be expecting? How can they prep themselves, and what's awaiting for them when they start looking into something like social intelligence?
No, that's a really good question. I think like I kind of briefly touched on earlier, it can be quite overwhelming. And I think to go in with because, I'll be completely honest with you, it's like I had a strategy in my head of what I thought it was going to, I thought would play out. And then I had this conversation with the team that I work with this tool. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is so new to me, because there's so much you can do with it. So I would, if you're thinking about doing it, obviously do a bit of research, go in with these ideas that what you want to get out of it, do some research and sort of sentiment trends and essentially what you want to get out of it.
So where is this space going, right? So predictive analysis, this time next year or in years to come, where's the innovation happening? What do you think is going to be possible that isn't possible now?
I think it will be really helpful when it comes to creating strategies. I mean, I think it would be really helpful to kind of blend more data in a very sort of interesting and an immersive way into these strategies that isn't just necessarily like, right, here's your targets, here's your numeric targets for the year. It's like, right, what really the data that you can get from this predictive analysis and social intelligence, I think can really, really help drive some of the best strategies that you'll ever create in terms of, all types of content, whether you're looking at web content, blog content, email marketing, social content. I think the kind of information that you can get from these tools will, one, help you easily to create these strategies. It will take away a lot of the kind of admin. And two, you can rely on it as well. It's pulling data from previous things that are real. So you can kind of, trust it in that sense. But just getting a real sort of deeper insight into how to make your brand even better. So
unfortunately, we're at the end of the podcast now. Although I love this fancy room that we're in with Her Majesty, staring at us beyond the grave. If someone wants to get in touch with you to discuss any of the things we've talked about today, where's a good place to do that, and what makes a message that you'll respond to?
LinkedIn, absolutely fine. I love a LinkedIn message. One thing I would say is, I don't know if this makes me sound really and I mean this in the most humble way possible, but just make sure that, you won't know how to spell my name. You actually are interested. I mean, I don't know who I think I am. I get so many messages. I don't. I get a lot of messages and I sort of think you've not, and it's the same with the hotel as well. It's like, slightly going off on a tangent here, but you get so many messages from influencers who clearly don't even know the hotel that they're reaching out to stay in. And I think, no, do your research. LinkedIn, absolutely fine. Really sales heavy messages, maybe not. I love the sort of, hey, do you want to have a quick call? Do you want to go for a quick coffee? I've got this really interesting idea that I want to speak to you about. Or would you be around for 2 minutes? I've got a quick question.
Brilliant. That's great advice, Molly. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hi. Just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.